welcome. You're watching Financial Quotient, a conversation about women and their money. I'm Sumaira Apti. Today we begin with the story of Abhilasha Sancheti, a Mumbai resident who has an interesting story on how she manages her finances.
Hi, I'm Abhilasha Sancheti. I am working as an in-house counsel with a leading private sector bank in India. The initial phase was very difficult because I had just lost my father and the savings were very less. But I started working and slowly and steadily we built up a corpus. There are various money lessons that my mother has been teaching me, but the most important is to first save and then spend, because most of the people, what they do is that whatever is left is saved, but she has always taught me that first save and then whatever left is to be spent. Secondly, she taught that how much soever small the saving may be, it will eventually grow up into a big corpus. So most of the people think if it is only 100 rupees or if it is only 1,000 bucks, should we actually save it or should we just spend it? So the thing is that in the long run, the smallest amount of the money will grow into a big corpus. So that is a very valuable lesson that I have learned.
Well, that's a great lesson really on money management taught by our mothers. Boond boond se banta sagar, right? I'm sure everybody who's watching can recall a little bit of what they have learned from their mothers at least. So let me invite two very dynamic ladies who also owe a lot to what they have learned from their mothers. And I'm sure we'll be able to find several important takeaways. So joining me are Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO of Edelweiss AMC, who has also recently been elected as the Vice Chair of AMFI, which is the umbrella body of India's mutual fund industry. So congratulations, Radhika. And we have Jyotsna Singh, who's a Senior ED at Kotak Wealth Management, named #1 by the Asian Private Bankers League Tables for India. So thank you very much to both of you for joining in. Radhika, let's start with you. What's the most important money lesson taught by your mother?
I think too, and I'll take 30 seconds to say that I'm so glad you're having this conversation, because I think we seek money wisdom from all kinds of gurus in the world, and I've always believed great wisdom lies, in our household. I think two from my mother. One is using money wisely and resourcefulness. I think the greatest thing about Indian mothers is that, money was never enough when we were growing up, and there were needs of kids in the house and husbands and everything. And yet you found a way to manage and save. So you made the best of what you had in terms of money, and yet you managed to save, and you did it consistently. And this all happened, by the way, without MIS and Excel and budgeting and projections and all the things I do now as a professional. And I think the other thing, Sumaira, is value for money. I think my mother has always used these words, Sasta Sundar Tikau, value for money. We all almost have made fun of these words growing up, but just valuing the price of these, things. And in the markets, we talk about margin of safety, valuations, etc. We learn that in some way at home, right? Make sure everything you buy is value for money.
That's true. But, Jyotsna, what about you? Do you echo with some of this, or is there more wisdom that you'd like to share? What are the money lessons your mom has taught you?
Let me start by saying thanks so much for having us here this afternoon. Absolute pleasure to be here. And yes, indeed, I echo with not only with what Radhika just mentioned, but even with what Abhilasha mentioned, and words of wisdom for sure. I want to say that sitting here, I feel blessed that I'm in a position to sit here and say, "Mere paas maa hai," or aisi maa who did not believe that it was, taboo for children to be aware of the importance of money, but in fact took utmost care to ensure that money and finance, in a very simplistic way, was understood in the right context, the right value system. Because let's not forget that at the end of the day, money should really not end, ideally. It should be a means to the end. And I think that's an important piece, because we find a lot of families hesitant about talking about money and finance and in the correct context with their children at a young age. You said that, you asked about what were my valuable, or rather invaluable, lessons that I learned from my mother. I'd say the first was undoubtedly equip yourself to be financially independent. Whether you choose to pursue a career or not, I always grew up hearing was in a way secondary, but be equipped to be financially independent. And it kind of resonated when Abhilasha made the point about, having to work her way through, etc. And then, of course, one is grown up seeing one's mother be the finance minister in the house. It's incredible how they manage month after month. When you look at expenses, everything just sort of falls into place. And when you compare, budgets versus actuals, and again, Radhika made this beautiful point on MISs, etc., that we look at, everything was just right. Then, on the same lines, she was the investment manager from whom one kind of learned the lesson of, very important lesson of diversification and not to keep all eggs in one basket. And so, just in terms of simple cash that was kept at home, one didn't necessarily find it locked in the cupboard, which would be the normal way of thinking for many of us today. So whether it was the chawal ka dabba or, some random drawer with some odds and ends, there would be money stashed in different places, but not necessarily kept in the same place. Clearly, the smartest fund manager who taught us the important lesson of asset allocation. And even if gold was, a big time favorite at that point in time, it was an allocation to an asset class that she believed to be, a good safety pot for the future, just in case. So I think all these lessons, and as we went to school and college, one formally learned about savings, and Warren Buffett has very wisely said, and I think again I heard Abhilasha speak about that don't save what is left. In fact, first do your savings and then do your spending. And we heard and learned in college that Warren Buffett said all of this. But actually, Mom was the first one who really taught you that a penny saved is a penny indeed earned. And on the same lines of saving and the concept of power of compounding, which we learned probably in MBA school and or maybe late college, etc. It was Mom who really taught you Einstein has actually talked about it as the eighth wonder of the world, incidentally. But save and let that money grow. Make a little bit of a corpus out of it and keep it there for a rainy day. Who taught us this? It was, in my case, clearly my mom who taught us that. I think very, very importantly, she taught us about beware of debt. And honestly, when we were growing up, debt was truly a four-letter word. So I think in summary, I'd say all the simple, commonsensical basics of money matters, I think were instilled in me by my mother. And, I think I want to just mention here that if one looks at what happened at the time of demonetization and the kind of money that came out of all sorts of sort of nooks and corners from many homes, gives me the confidence probably to say that I don't think my story is terribly different from many others. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, all our stories are pretty similar, right? Because, the one thing I remember my mom saying regarding money is that, wealth is not earned, it is saved. I mean, if I use that in today's context, I'd say wealth is, what you invest and get out of it, right? Radhika, a lot of the younger people these days, though, I see, they're spending to keep up the aspirational expectations. Perhaps there's pressure from social media and so on. Is investing a big lesson that's not being passed on sufficiently?
I think it is. And, I think materiality is becoming a bigger and bigger part of life, and the role that comparison is playing. You almost believe that the life someone lives. And I remember, I grew up abroad because of my father's profession, and there were always comparisons with people who are richer than you, etc. And materiality existed then. And one of the things my mother said back then is, don't compare. Right? Someone will always drive a better car, have a better phone, etc. But there is a limit to comparison, and you have to focus on what you want to do. And I don't think spending money is bad, but since you're also talking about moms, so I think one of the things I learned is about the difference, and I would tell young people this, between what we call in the budget, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. There is buying on a mobile phone or on material things that just gets consumed, right? And that's not really a very value-add expenditure. And then there's investing in yourself as a young person, in a higher education or in skills, etc. And we were taught that, you may have the less nice branded clothes, but we'll send you to the best education that you can afford. And that's the message I give young people today, that investment is not just investment in financial assets. It's also your own talent, because that's ultimately the best asset. So focus on capital expenditure rather than revenue expenditure, because that's an investment.
Well, Radhika, that is so well put. And, I think I'm going to remember that for a long time, because this is something that, I couldn't agree with more, that, invest in things that really matter and not in just transitionary things. So let's take a very quick break. We have a lot to talk with Jyotsna and Radhika, and we'll do right that on the other side. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. We're in conversation with Jyotsna Singh, Senior ED at Kotak Wealth Management, and Radhika Gupta, MD and CEO of Edelweiss AMC and the Vice Chairman of AMFI. So we've been speaking about the money lessons which have been taught to us by our mothers. But Jyotsna, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that living below our means and delayed gratification was a lesson my mom taught me. I know it's been a favorite of Indian mothers. Do you think it holds true across generations?
Favorite of Indian mothers? Yes, undoubtedly. Once grown up again, hearing the famous sort of chadar ke bahar pair nahi phailane chahiye. In fact, interestingly, there's empirical data. Stanford's marshmallow experiments suggest that delayed gratification usually has better outcomes in life in the longer run. But, to your question on does this hold true across generations, I'd say the jury is still out on that one. The fact is that, today needs of today are beyond the sort of roti, kapra or makan that we grew up hearing about. In fact, on a lighter note, one always now says roti, kapra, makan and data. But truth be told, what used to be a want earlier may be a need today. So I think we're seeing that sort of change. And, you pick up any faction of society. The purchasing power is far greater. Never before access to global products, services, it's all right there. Then to say that, today's generation is not one of instant gratification, it just seems to be the name of the game. And right, instant noodles to instant loans, and everyone's looking at instant gratification. But having said that, I'd also say and give credit to the younger generation, and we talked about it being a far more aspirational one. But I think there is a tribe and a growing tribe, if I may say so, where we are seeing a bit of a difference. And the difference is that there are increasingly more and more people out there who are more focused on experience and experiential living rather than necessarily being obsessed with ownership and possession. The typical sort of khud ka ghar, it's a big thing having a roof over your head. But should you really necessarily own that roof, or is it okay if you don't own it? I think, again, most of us have grown up, saying that I want to have khud ka chhat over your head kind of thing. But today, you're going to hear youngsters talk about, be very practical and say, rental yields, being what they are, probably doesn't make sense to invest in a house always. There was the classic debate of EMI versus rental income. But we are seeing a lot of the new gen or the next gen really say, I want a better quality of life. I'd like to live in a home. I'd like to live maybe close to the workplace. So better quality of living. And therefore, it means I don't necessarily end up owning my house, just rent it out for the next 3 years or 5 years that I'm here. So I think, we're kind of trying to see that we are definitely seeing that difference. And if I may just add to your point on, minimalism, etc., I think, living below your means. I think minimalism is living below, the new living below your means. And one is actually beginning to see some sort of green shoots in that space. So I kind of look at it from a slightly different sense and lens, and I'd say the jury's still out on whether one can just
absolutely. It's a great point, Jyotsna, because while there is a lot that you want to sort of factor in right away, there are some rules which must be reimagined for the times that we live in. So why not? Radhika, I was hearing you talk about a similar subject, and you said that a lot of the business lessons you had learned at your dining table, is it? What's the story? Tell us. And are there lessons which can be passed on to women who are looking at entrepreneurial journeys?
I think they can. And, I had given a talk for Josh, which you were referring to, where I talked about the fact that a lot of the core lessons in your MBA are ultimately things that you learned at home, from your dining table or seeing your mother. I mean, we talk about customer experience, the fact that, a mother deals with so many people who are different kind of customers in her life. I mean, just look at her morning routine of managing kids, husband, her own work, etc. And she deals with them, so well. We talk about empathetic leadership, which has become such a big buzzword, especially after the post-COVID or, this era. And you've seen that in your home. So I think resourcefulness in budgeting we've talked about. So I think many of these skills, multitasking, are all skills that can be applied either to the corporate world or I think to entrepreneurship. And I think, one of the lasting memories of the last 2 years, Sumaira, is the fact that if you look at most nations that have been very well led by COVID, some of them happen to be women-run nations. So I think, the conversations about female leadership, what these skill sets can bring to nations, corporates, and entrepreneurships are very valuable. I would add just one point to what Jyotsna and you were saying. I also think younger girls are becoming far more aspirational. I probably get 50 notes a week and talk to 2 young girls in their 20s a week. I think their level of resourcefulness, aspiration, and ability to act on that aspiration is far higher than even my generation was. And I'm probably 15 years older than the people I'm talking to. So I'm also very, very optimistic about the future. And it's not just the 4 or 5 big cities.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in awe of younger people because, when I was a lot younger, say 15 years younger, I didn't know the stuff that people know today. But, just to wrap up, Jyotsna, one thing about my mom that I remember was that she was a calming influence in the house, right? So is calm decision making an equally important money lesson that you think moms have taught us?
Absolutely. In fact, I'd again say calm decision making is important in all matters, right? Not only money matters, and it should not be an exception. I think, we all know that taking decisions in the heat of the moment or when one is highly emotionally strong or something, never a good idea. But I think when it comes to money matters, which are usually from a slightly medium to longer term perspective, staying calm, staying cool, not getting, not losing your mind or sleep for that matter, is very important. And, I just sort of would say one good way of achieving that is be very clear on what your financial goals are. Articulate your goals, put pen to paper, list it down so that you know exactly what it is that you want to achieve. And, you don't get these sort of panic attacks every now and then that, is this safety pot that I've tried to create good enough? Will it work for me? Will it not? Because you've kind of, worked on exactly what your financial goals are. And then, of course, be very, very cognizant of your own risk profile. Don't get carried away or, again, worry too much about what X is doing or what Y is doing. This is not meant to be a race with the Joneses. Because their risk appetite could be terribly different from yours. Their goal objectives could be very different from yours. So I think it's really important, to stick to the course and do what is right for you. I'd also sort of want to say, stick to whatever asset allocation you have worked out for yourself. Don't deviate from it every now and then. That's the whole idea of sticking to the discipline of asset allocation.
Yeah.
And I know it's easier said than done, but I just leave you with the thought of saying that try and cut out all the noise, right? And just stay the course, especially if you're saving through the markets, which most of us do these days in some form or the other. It's very easy to get, to get sort of jittery about the volatility in the market, the lows, the highs, the cycles that we see. So just, keep all the noise out, stick to your goals, stick to your risk profile, and follow the approach of disciplined asset allocation. That's really important.
Absolutely.
In fact, on the subject of calmness, I kind of remember, Pema Chodron, the famous Tibetan Buddhist nun, she made this beautiful statement, and I'll just quote that, where she said, always remember that you are the sky and everything else is just the weather. Yeah, so
absolutely.
That's the way you should sort of take life also, and investments too as a part of life.
No, so true, so true. What a good note to end the show on. Jyotsna, Radhika, thank you so much, ladies, for joining in. And, really, at these kind of times that we're living in, where we see instant gratification, there's so much uncertainty around the economy, jobs, investments, and whatnot. It's perhaps time for us to go back to our roots and, imbibe some of the wisdom of the ages, and what needs to be reimagined should be done. Well, with that, we'll wind up on FQ for today, but we leave you with one of the stories from our women who inspire. Thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Akshita Gandhi. I manage corporate treasury at Visco Rehabilitation Aids, and I'm also a mother of 2 kids. I started my investment journey at a very young age, at the age of 16. It helped that I liked numbers, so it came a little bit naturally to me. Actually, no decision when it comes to family finances is individualistic. We do it as a team. My husband, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law, and we do it as a team, and we try to maintain asset allocation in a perfect way, as in we make sure that we are not overly weighted in a particular segment, say as equity or debt or real estate, and that basically has given us a better balanced portfolio in the coming years. What I learned from my mother-in-law specifically is like nothing held her back. Although she doesn't have a formal education, she knew that investment decisions can be managed by women, can be understood, and everything is a process. So talking to people, reading has always made her add to her knowledge.